Hello, Mikko.
Hello, Freddie. Thanks for having me.
Awesome to have you here. It's an honor to have a bit of a chat with you, and I admire your work. I'm a young guy, and you have a great career behind you, so it's a cool thing to have you here.
You're the young guy, I'm the old guy.
Well, you're the guy with the experience, and that's why I'm asking you some questions. In regards to Bitcoin, do you remember the first time you heard about it, and what were your thoughts back then?
Since I've been working with cybersecurity as my main profession for many, many years, of course, I heard about Bitcoin in relation to cybersecurity. And I think it's also a great example on how many of the online criminals are very early adopters. They use new technology very quickly. So yeah, the first time I heard about Bitcoin was already a misuse of the technology. These were rogue miners, which used to be a problem around 2011 when mining for Bitcoin on CPUs was still doable. So we were in the lab, we were analyzing malware samples. One of the samples connected to this really weird botnet mechanism, like this peer-to-peer network, and it was doing these really complex calculations, and we had no idea what it was about. But looking at some of the protocols, Googling for some of the keywords, it turned out to be something called Bitcoin. And there's this currency, and there had been digital currencies before that, e-cash and some other early attempts. But that was really the first time I heard about Bitcoin. So someone was already doing rogue mining on somebody else's computer by infecting them with an email worm and then using all the infected computers as a botnet to mine for Bitcoin. This was 2011.
That's a while back, all right, and it's quite wild to see how criminals always see the possibilities before these big corporations or nations do. And thoughts of that, you're super well known for being a pioneer in the cybersecurity space and like an antivirus guru. How do you see these like Bitcoin and cybersecurity overlapping each other, and how like what's your like full view on that?
Well, Bitcoin is a technology which can be used for good and bad. That's what we always keep repeating, and it's a little bit tired metaphor because of course you could say the same thing about anything at all. Bitcoin is a major innovation. There's no doubt about that. It started the whole revolution in financial technology, and certainly we've seen a fair share of misuse. When there is a mechanism for criminals to move money without getting caught, it's the equivalent of cash. Real-world criminals love cash. Online criminals love Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. That doesn't mean that cash would be bad or we should ban cash. It's exactly the same thing. So I'm fairly neutral. I'm interested in the technology and innovation behind it. I'm interested in the things it can enable, but I hold no illusions that it wouldn't be also used for bad.
I mean, as you showed your coin earlier on, each coin has two sides. So same goes to Bitcoin or whatever tool you want to use in the cybersecurity space. Bitcoin says, or Bitcoin critics say that Bitcoin is only used by criminals, but wouldn't that be a very bad way of looking at it since since Bitcoin is completely open for everyone in the sense that you can look at the blockchain and just enjoy all the information? What's your take on this?
The way you can tell a major innovation from other innovations is that you take the innovation and you explain it to someone who had never heard about it. And if that person's first reaction is that, hey, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? That's the sign of a major innovation. So let's try this with Bitcoin. What's Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a ledger which never changes. Every entry is unchangeable forever and public forever. In a nutshell, that's what it is. Yeah. And when you explain it like that, it seems pretty obvious. Yeah. Just a list of transactions and you just can never change them and it's public forever. Where's the innovation? Well, the innovation is that nobody had thought about this before the Bitcoin paper. Before December 2008, this didn't exist. Yeah. That's a sign of a major innovation. And major innovations like Bitcoin, like the Bitcoin blockchain, enables a whole range of new possibilities, new innovations you can build on top of it, like we've seen with all these other technologies and the whole concept of programmable money. The fact that you can have money that you can program to do things for you, that you can have contracts.
Yeah.
And that's a very powerful and also a little bit scary phenomenon. But there's no question about whether this is a major innovation and a major technological revolution.
Yeah. And I mean, people say that it's not anchored to anything, but the protocol itself is the anchor, in my opinion, and that's why it works.
But it's also the same answer for why it's valuable.
Yeah.
Like when you take anything that's expensive to create, that's something that people want and which is hard to come by, well, then it increases in price. And I've used Birkin handbags as an example. These are handbags that go for 10,000.
You've used Birkin handbags?
Not yet, but I'm sure I will. But you could buy one for 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. And the reason why they're expensive is that there's very few of them made every year. And they're very expensive to make and everybody wants them. Well, that's the same thing with Bitcoin. That's the logic why they're expensive. The fact that it's not tied into anything real is completely irrelevant. In fact, Bitcoin is tied into math. It's a currency based on math, and math doesn't change. Math is strong. Math isn't wrong. If you have to tie a currency on something, math is not a bad place to tie it into.
No, I mean, math is rationality and logic, so it works very well when you're dealing with zeros and ones. Back to the hacker perspective on this, a couple of years back, we had this security breach in Finland with Vastaamo, where a lot of people's private information security numbers were leaked. Was it so that the hacker was caught because he was using Bitcoin, or can you elaborate on how this happened?
Sure. It is part of the picture, and it's also a great example on how Bitcoin isn't probably the best tool for criminals to move money around. Again, it's a public ledger. It's an open ledger. You can look at every transaction. The big exchanges do know your customer today. It's surprisingly hard to move significant amounts of Bitcoin without being traceable by authorities. And this is the reason why many of, for example, a big part of online drug trade today is not done with Bitcoin. It's quite often done with Monero or Zcash or other currencies, which are more anonymous than Bitcoin. But it was part of the whole tracing process into catching the guy who did the Vastaamo breach. The single biggest mistake he did was accidentally leaking a copy of the server he was using to host his Tor site. But among the evidence used against him in court was also the money movements. He collected the ransoms from the victims of this psychotherapy center that he hacked in Bitcoin. He did create a unique wallet for every victim, and when victims paid, he moved the money through an OC transaction system to Monero once again. And then from Monero back to himself. Interestingly enough, the Central Criminal Police of Finland wasn't able just to follow the Bitcoin transactions, but also Monero. And in general, Monero is thought to be almost impossible to trace. In fact, I know of one criminal case in the world where police has used evidence of tracing Monero transactions, and that case is the Vastaamo case. So Finnish Central Criminal Police has world-class experience in working with cryptocurrencies.
That is, yeah. I mean, for all the crooks out there, don't do it.
Yeah.
I
mean, we like cryptocurrencies, but we don't like criminals.
No, exactly.
We don't want them to misuse this technology.
No, and they do blasphemy for the rest of the people who are a part of it. So it's not a good thing. When it comes to the individual, what would you say are the biggest cybersecurity risks today for an individual?
It's quite interesting how this has changed. The same attacks, the same risks 10 years ago were applying to home users and to companies, like email worms or drive-by downloads hitting your browser through Flash and Java exploits. This is something that 10 years ago was the norm, and it was hitting home users and companies pretty much the same. Over the last decade, we've seen a very clear divide. Today, home users, consumers, are seeing quite different attacks from companies and public sector and enterprises. So for companies, it's quite obvious, it's ransomware. Ransomware is the biggest problem for companies. Ransomware really started in 2013. That's when we found the first ransomware using Bitcoin. It was known as Crypto Locker and then quickly followed by Crypto Wall. These are operations run by Russian ransomware gangs. And since then, it has completely exploded. There's hundreds of gangs, many of them from Russia, some of them from outside of Russia, and they make all their money by locking corporate enterprise computers, servers, cloud instances, and then asking for Bitcoin payment to open up the computers and also to prevent them from leaking the stolen information like email archives on the Tor sites run by these ransomware gangs. And clearly Bitcoin is a big part of that. That's how they collect the payments. But that's not a problem for home users at all. Home users don't need to worry about ransomware. When ransomware as a phenomenon started in the beginning, they were targeting home users. But very quickly, these gangs realized that there's so much more money to be made by targeting companies. So right now, we don't know of a single gang which would be targeting home users. Home users need to worry about totally different things, most typically scams. So you get scammed online by someone to make an investment, or somebody wants to buy something you're selling online, or somebody wants to double your money, or you fall for a romance scam. And these are not technical attacks at all. These are social engineering attacks.
They're like psychological more so.
Indeed. They might be implemented with technology. For example, a big part of romance scams are run by large language models nowadays. So it's not a human keeping up the discussion with you for weeks and months. It's a bot, which is actually keeping the same kind of discussion with hundreds of victims at the same time in different languages. But in the end, there is no easy technological solution for countering scams because it's really a human problem. Human gets conned or human falls for something. And the numbers are on the side of the attackers. If they have a hard time finding victims who fall for these scams, then just scam more users. I mean, there's no limits on how many potential victims you'll be able to find online. And a typical example of the kind of scams that target consumers and home users today with a link to Bitcoin would, of course, be these deepfake attacks where a celebrity is recommending that you invest into this new token, new cryptocurrency. 4 or 5 years ago, it was NFTs.
Yeah, this was big then.
Yeah. And we see Elon Musk pushing that, I will send me an Ethereum and I'll send you 2 back. Send me Bitcoin, I'll send you 2 back. Spoiler alert, he won't. Don't send your money. But it does look like him. It sounds like him. And of course, making a deepfake of a celebrity or a TV broadcaster or a politician or Elon Musk is very easy because there's so much source material available and the tools are completely accessible to anybody. So we are absolutely living in the era of deepfakes and we can't really trust our eyes anymore. And it's interesting how it's going to change the way we look at content. We all know Photoshop, of course, today. I remember when Photoshop arrived in the mid-1990s. Before Photoshop, of course, you could modify photos. It was hard. You had no tools for it. And quite often it would be like manual. You would actually have a physical photo and you would cut and
like the old
glue.
Superman movies and the CGI there.
Yeah. So it was something that was hard. And then Photoshop came around and it was trivial. Now, anybody could just remove a person from a photo or, add 2 heads for a guy on the photo. And that completely changed the way everybody was looking at photos. We no longer trusted photos as much as we did before that. We knew before Photoshop that you could modify photos, but it was hard. It wasn't very common. Then it was so easy, even a child could do it. And this is exactly what's happening now with moving images. Because we've always known that Hollywood can do anything with video. They can have special effects and whatever. But we couldn't do it. And now we can. And that's going to change the way we look at moving image. We won't be trusting moving image. And that's great. I mean, I like the idea that people lose their trust into things they shouldn't be trusting. This AI revolution has many times led me into discussions where people are worried that these technological tools will make people lose their trust on things online. And I always tell them that, yeah, that's great. I hope they will lose their trust because right now they're trusting too much.
Yeah, like they're blind.
They're blind. They believe every video they see. They fall for every scam. They follow every link. They click on every attachment. They give their password to any form that asks for it. If we can break people's trust, that's just good. Because right now, most people trust too much.
Yeah, and then we go to the good old Bitcoin phrase: trust, don't verify. No, verify, don't trust. Sorry. I was joking.
There we go.
Yeah, but just a bit of a sliver on the tongue. Why do you think the importance of cybersecurity is such a hard thing to sell to an individual? Let's say like a young person. I'm a part of these people. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of advertisements, especially on social media when it comes to like VPNs or stuff like that. But people tend to like overclick them or just like skip it because it seems a bit UFO or whatever.
I think you're answering it already. It seems a bit UFO. It seems too complicated, too hard, too technical, or something you can do later. And it's perfectly understandable. It is a complex, hard, technical topic. But it doesn't change the fact that it does apply to everybody today. Everybody lives online. We all need technology for our daily lives, which means online security is part of that. And we should take it seriously. Very practical example. Next time you get prompted that there's an update available, update for an application, update for your phone, update for the operating system, don't ignore it. Don't delay it. Update now. It's not that you will get new features. It's the fact that every update will bring you patches to known security vulnerabilities. If you have known security vulnerabilities on your phones, on your computer, on your servers, it makes it much, much more likely that you will become a victim of a crime. So whenever you're prompted for updates, take them. Don't delay. Same thing with backups. The way we should all think about backing up our data is to think that our house burns down together with our computers and phones. Imagine you just lost your computers and phones. And the question is, do you still have your data? Do you still have your emails? Do you still have your photos? And some people will, some people won't. It really depends if you've thought about this before. Of course, today, most people have their emails in the cloud using Gmail or Outlook or what have you. But photos might already be a different thing. Some people have them online. Some people just have them on their phone and nowhere else. So think through, if a fire would destroy your devices, would you lose your history? And if you would, maybe you should do something about it. It doesn't mean that you have to put everything in the cloud if you don't like the cloud, but make a backup on a removable hard drive or memory card and bring it to the grandmother's, have it somewhere else. Yeah. So just make sure that you can recover your data. And if you do this, if you think about this physical problem, like fire burning down my house, and you fix that, that's going to fix many of the other problems you might be facing, like hacker attacks or wipers, which would destroy your data, or if it's a corporate environment, ransomware. So back up your data, back up your memories, back up your history.
It's a simple thing, yeah. I mean, now that you put it so clearly, and as I'm speaking to you in person, it makes more sense. But
I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll ask you if you've backed up your stuff.
All right, I'll do that. I'll
hold you to it.
I'll do that for sure. The law of Pippen says that if something is smart, it's vulnerable. Is Bitcoin smart or vulnerable?
It's both. It's definitely both. Bitcoin is smart money. It's digital money. Money is data. Data is money. The Hyppönen law, initially, it was really about smart devices. So IoT. When the IoT revolution started 10 years ago, when every television you could buy from the shop started being online and cars started getting online, watches started going online, I just realized that when we add connectivity and functionality into everyday devices, they become smart, but at the very same time, they become vulnerable. And there's really nothing we can do to change that. The example I always use is my wristwatch. This is a watch with mechanical features, doesn't have Wi-Fi, doesn't have Bluetooth, doesn't have a CPU. Can you hack my watch?
Not really.
No, because there's
unless I get into it. But that's yeah,
basically unhackable.
Yeah, completely.
Then you look at Apple Watch or Android Watch or Suunto Watch or what have you. They might be very secure. For example, Apple Watch has great bedrock built into it. It's one of the hardest devices in the world to hack, but it is hackable. It runs code written by humans. Humans make mistakes. When programmers make mistakes, we end up with bugs. And when we have bugs in connected systems, they become vulnerabilities which can be exploited. So every time when we add functionality and connectivity into devices, they do become hackable. So if it's smart, it's hackable. If it's smart, it's vulnerable. And it's a fact of life which we won't be able to change.
Would you say that it's usually the hardware that's, when it comes to like a smart hardware, that it's the hardware that loses, or is it the thing itself or in the hardware?
It's the code running on the hardware where the vulnerabilities are. Like I said, it's programmers making mistakes. And it's an interesting thought experiment to think about what could we do about that. Okay, if the root cause is that humans make mistakes, and programmers are human, programmers don't always feel like human, but they are. When programmers make mistakes, they create bugs. So how do we fix this? The solution is obvious. Get rid of humans. Have code write code. So AI write code, which we already do quite extensively. And you could see a future where these code writing AI systems are so good that they won't make mistakes. And we will end up with perfect or close to perfect code, which means the code cannot be exploited. There's no bugs, there's no vulnerabilities.
There's no way of putting like a Trojan horse in
Well, I'm not holding my breath. But as a thought experiment, this is the way you would fix it. If the root cause is humans, get rid of humans.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, it's just a lot of info. When it comes to Bitcoin and Bitcoin critics calling Bitcoin hackable, would you say Bitcoin is hackable?
It's one of the hardest thing to hack that I know. I'm amazed in how good it was and still is. When I read the Bitcoin white paper, I guess 2011, when I first heard about it, I was amazed in the simplicity of the algorithm. And then when I was looking at the code, I was amazed how well written it was. You know, it's still a bit of a mystery. Of course, we don't know where the code comes from. We don't know who programmed the first implementation. But it's a goddamn well-made first attempt from the security architecture point of view. A lot of world-class security people have looked at it and made the same conclusion. It's not perfect, but it's amazingly well done. There's very few weak points in there outside of the obvious ones, which is that if you control most of the mining capacity, then of course you control the whole system. But if you try to hack something, you probably should choose an easier target than Bitcoin.
What would you say is the number one weak point in Bitcoin? Is it the individual once again?
Well, I guess, most likely it would be the double-edged sword of openness. Many of the people who use Bitcoin, really value their privacy. And like we discussed earlier, authorities have ways of tracking down the money movements inside a blockchain like this, which is something we want to have, a blockchain which is used by the general public, but the openness also has its downsides. And the ways of bypassing that, bypassing by using mixers or other kind of systems, they are sort of a little bit of a kludge add-on on top of it, and also legally in a gray area. So I guess that would be it. Openness works both ways.
When you talk to Bitcoin advocates, they usually say that it's a protocol, and they compare it to the internet at the same time. Would you say that this is a valid statement, or is there flaws in it? Yeah,
I think it's fair to make the comparison. When we look at any major technological revolution, we see the same phenomena happening. Nothing changes the world as much and as quickly as technology revolutions. They change the world much better than economics or politics. Technology is the way to change the world. If you want to change the world, the best way to do it right now is through technology. And we've seen this over the last decades over and over again with the revolution of connectivity in the form of the internet revolution, then the revolution of mobility with mobile phones, revolution of social media, the Bitcoin revolution, now of course the AI revolution. And when you look at any of revolutions of this scale, you see that all of them have brought us benefits and problems. And no matter how much we would love to get just the benefits, without the problems, we won't be able to do that. Internet is the best thing ever. It opened up global markets, global connectivity, global entertainment, global messaging for all of us. But at the same time, it completely changed crime, completely changed risks, it completely changed war. And we won't be able to mitigate that. We will get both. We will get the benefits and the problems. You look at social media. When social media came along, it seemed like the best thing ever. Now everybody will get their voice heard. Yeah. Everybody can be a publisher. And the end result is that we have people more divided than ever before. We lost the country from the EU largely thanks to social media and the operations run on top of it. And people are falling for scams and these weird conspiracy theories better than ever before, thanks to social media. The revolution of mobile phones gave us great independence, but now we are more tied than ever before onto these devices which we can't escape, and we keep doom scrolling through the night even though we'd like to sleep. So we get the same thing over and over again. And the exact same thing applies to the revolution of cryptocurrencies and the revolution of Bitcoin. We get the benefits, we get the problems.
Do you think, you mentioned how many revolutions we've encountered over the past 20, 30, 40 years. Do you think this frequency of new crazy good innovations and technologies will keep going up, or do you think it will at some point slow down?
I think it's accelerating, and it's accelerating because of generative AI. It's just pressing down the pedal of innovation. We're faster and faster with new innovations, and the AI revolution in itself is much faster than any of the previous technology revolution has ever been. Because typically we've had these hype cycles shaping the way these revolutions play out. I remember when internet and World Wide Web came around, and we had the famous .com bubble around 1999, 2000, where basically we were given promises about what internet really did deliver. That, everybody will be online, everybody will be shopping online, everybody will be watching movies online, which all happened. That's where we live today. But it didn't happen in 2000 or 2001 or 2 or 3. It took 10, 15 years. So the bubble bursted because it took too long. And with AI, the bubble is still there. It doesn't seem to be bursting because AI is delivering. And it's enabling new revolutions as well. So it's getting harder and harder to forecast the future. And when we speak about the benefits and problems, the potential benefits and potential problems with generative AI are probably bigger than ever before. But it's very hard to forecast when the inflection point happens. The first time I read about artificial intelligence was in 1983. I was 13 years old. I was reading the Tekniikan Maailma magazine, which had a 10-page article about artificial intelligence, pretty much dead on. Like one day we will have all of mankind's knowledge as data instead of on paper, and we will be able to feed it into computers, and they will remember it all, and they become intelligent. Well, that's basically a large language model.
Yeah.
And it just took 40 years until it happened because we didn't have the computing capability. We didn't have the GPUs. We didn't have the storage capability. We didn't have the cloud. Now it all happened, but nobody could have told us 10 years ago that it's going to happen in 5 years. ChatGPT was released pretty much exactly 5 years ago. So we've been living 5 years now in the world of large language models.
That's actually a very. Do you think it comes from this completely sidetracked question? But I think it's interesting. Do you think the vision for AI and stuff like this comes from sci-fi, or is it just like human curiosity? I don't know.
We've been trying to build it forever. I mean, university courses have been teaching artificial intelligence since the 1970s and 80s, and well, at least the 80s. But we've been looking at maybe wrong ways to create the kind of functionality we really wanted. We had all these machine learning algorithms, and they had their limited usefulness. But of course, the real game changer was generative AI and these couple of breakthroughs in algorithms, and the fact that we do have all of mankind's knowledge now online. Everything, every single book ever written is available as bits, which, I mean, has been true only for a handful of years now. We couldn't feed the knowledge into machines because it wasn't online. Today it is.
When it comes to nation states, do you think they see Bitcoin more as a possibility or a threat? And do you have any experiences from your own side in regards to how countries have like seen or developed their perspective on Bitcoin?
This is in flux as well. Historically, governments ignored Bitcoin. Just like they ignored internet when it came around. Politicians couldn't have cared less. Like, whatever, doesn't matter. At some stage, they started paying attention. And now, of course, some governments are very much into cryptocurrencies, stable coins, and Bitcoin. United States is a prime example of a country which has changed their position. They used to be going after players in this space, and now they seem to be, with the current administration, very pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto in general. And then we have countries like San Salvador and other countries which are really going all in with Bitcoin. Many countries are playing with the idea of like country-run stable coins or things like that. Everything is in flux. But I can tell you about an anecdote that I had. Hold on. This is WannaCry outbreak, which happened in 2017, so 8 years ago. WannaCry was one of the larger ransomware outbreaks in history, originally a piece of ransomware written by the North Korean government, which was using an exploit written by US National Security Agency, went across the internet infecting millions of computers. Huge news, especially huge news in United Kingdom, because the National Health Service, their hospital network, was shut down by WannaCry. Thousands of surgeries cancelled, ambulances queuing outside hospitals, unable to get in. Huge mess. So my phone rings on the next day after the WannaCry outbreak. BBC is calling. And the journalist wants to know more about WannaCry. What is this? How does it work? We had analyzed the whole malware, so I gave the background, how it worked, how it was stopped, all of that. And then she was interested in the money movements, because it was a piece of ransomware. It was demanding Bitcoin. So what's Bitcoin? How does it work? And you know, all of that. And so I briefed her. And then she was, okay, we'd love to shoot you on camera. Could you come to London tomorrow to BBC and we'll make a story about this? Sure, I'll take the morning plane. And then she asked me how could we visualize, these cryptocurrencies, these Bitcoins to TV viewers? Because it's very complicated. And I told her that, I could just bring you some Bitcoins, some physical Bitcoins. Because I always carry, I used to carry loaded Bitcoins in my wallet. Nowadays I carry unloaded Bitcoins, but physical Bitcoins anyway. So I can always show people what a real world Bitcoin with a hologram and everything looks like. So I told her that, sure, I'll just bring you a couple of Bitcoins and we can shoot them on camera. And she was really excited. Yeah, please do. Could you bring a couple so we have more than one to show the camera? Sure. I was lucky enough to buy some Kazaskius coins early on which I unfortunately weak hands ended up opening too early. But back then I still had like an unopened 5 Bitcoin coin and things like that. So the next morning I hop on Finnair flight, I fly to Heathrow, I land to Heathrow, I go to passport check, then I go to customs. And in customs I walk to the red line. And there's a guy on desk looking like a question mark, and I tell him that, hello, I'm coming from Finland, I'm entering United Kingdom carrying monetary units worth more than £10,000 on me. Because there was a poster on the wall saying that if you're arriving to UK with 10,000 or more in monetary units, you have to declare. And the guy was, yep, all right, cool. What do you have? And I told him, well, I have Bitcoin. Because I had 6.1 Bitcoin on me. And he was like, okay, And he was, didn't know what to do. So he tells me, hold on, let me get a guy. And he disappears somewhere, comes back with another guy who knows about Bitcoin. And he's like, okay, so you're arriving to UK with Bitcoin. How many? 6.1. Yes, that would be more than 10,000. It was like £12,000 at the time. And says, okay, asked me, like, where do you have them? Are they on your computer? Are they on your phone? And I was like, no, I have physical Bitcoin, like coins. And he's like, what? Coins? Let me get a guy. He goes and gets a third guy. And the third guy comes along and he's already mad. He's already angry at me from the beginning. He's like pacing back and forth and he's like, physical Bitcoin. Physical Bitcoins. He doesn't know what to do with it. So eventually he asks me that these Bitcoins that you're attempting to enter the United Kingdom with, did you declare them in Finland when you left Finland? And I told him, no, I didn't. And he was like, excellent, you may go, please go. And they just threw me out.
And now you wandered around and had your time in England. And did the BBC interview go well?
Yeah, sure. Then they broadcasted the thing where I show these, the 5 Bitcoin coin from Kazaskius on camera. It's somewhere in the BBC archives. Still unloaded at the time.
It was never.
It was real 5 Bitcoins at the time. Like I said, weak hands.
Yeah.
At some stage, I opened it. Never should have opened it.
Talking about England and nations in general, if a nation would want to ban Bitcoin, let's say Finland would want to ban Bitcoin and the usage of it, how could that be done, or is that even possible in today's world anymore?
Well, there's 2 kinds of currencies. Currencies based on politics and currencies based on math. Math doesn't care about your regulations. Math doesn't care about your laws. If your currency, euro, dollar, whatever, is based on politics, you can set whatever laws and regulations you want and they will apply. But you can't change math with laws. Just like we can't pass a law which would change the value of pi or p from 3.14 to something. I mean, we could pass a law which would say it's 4.14. That wouldn't really change anything at all. It would still really be 3.14. So what I'm saying is that math ignores laws and regulations. So we can try to pass whatever we want, and Bitcoin blockchain will ignore it. The only place where we can effectively use laws and regulation is the transaction between traditional currencies and cryptocurrencies. So effectively exchanges. You can. That's where you can have working regulations and working laws. But whatever happens inside the blockchain, it doesn't care. That's why it's so international, and that's why it's free and open, because it's based on math.
So you can basically try and segregate it from your own economy, but in its essence, it has its own economy since it's built on math.
Exactly, spot on.
On your book, The Internet, you say Bitcoin is a tool like any other. I think we went through this a bit, but is there any sort of tool you would compare Bitcoin to that has existed in the past?
It's interesting to think about technological innovations in the sense that when something is invented, we cannot uninvent it. A good example of this would be encryption algorithms, strong crypto, the kind of crypto we use every day. Every time we go online, we use strong uncrackable algorithms to secure our communications or our online purchases or our transactions in financial environments, including Bitcoin. And the innovation of strong encryption has been challenged by law enforcement and intelligence agencies and politicians over and over again for obvious reasons, because bad people use strong encryption. The problem is we cannot uninvent it. We cannot make it go away. Once something has been invented, it's out there. And if we pass a law saying that you must not use this invention, then you and me, law-abiding citizens, we would follow those laws and we wouldn't use that technology. If there's a law that you must not use strong encryption, then we wouldn't use it. But criminals still would use it, and we couldn't prevent them from using it because the innovation has been done. Even if we take away all the products and tools and apps which use strong encryption, they can just walk into any library where a first grade university math book will tell you how to implement uncrackable encryption because the idea is out there. And this applies to any other idea as well. So what would be something we could compare to Bitcoin or blockchain in general? Well, Tor. Let's consider Tor here. So the Tor network, which enables you to access the internet itself or World Wide Web anonymously, but even more importantly, allows you to host content in the Tor network without anyone knowing where the servers physically are. That's the effective part about Tor. We don't know where the machine is. If we would know where the machine is, law enforcement or anyone who would have the rights could go and take a copy of the server and figure out who's running it and shut it down. Since we don't know if it's in Sweden or in Brazil, we can't find it, we can't investigate it, we can't shut it down. This is what Tor does. And you could argue maybe that the Tor network, Tor as an invention, has brought more bad to us than good. There's plenty of good uses for Tor, but there's plenty of bad uses for Tor. Almost all, very big part of drug trade is there, gun trade, exploit trades, trade of stolen data, credit cards. It's all happening in Tor networks. Certainly, there's good things happening there as well, but you could argue that there might be more bad things than good things. But the problem is we can't make it go away. When something has been invented, we're stuck with it. We can't make it disappear.
Yeah, the paradox of the Pandora's box.
That's exactly what it is.
How do you see, when we talked a lot about AI development and how that works, how do you see AI agents in the future using a Bitcoin? Because they don't need no ID numbers or so on to open a Bitcoin account or just go on the blockchain. How do you see this development in the future, or do you see it as a thing at all?
Well, it's quite obvious that AI agents will be trading tools, services, storage space, computing capability. They need to be able to buy and sell things to each other. And if two artificial intelligence units are doing trade, why on earth would they use euros or dollars to do it? It doesn't make much sense at all, does it? It would be much more understandable and native for that kind of entities to do their trading with digital currencies. So, yeah, I think we're only seeing the very first steps of that, but to me it would seem obvious that when AI trades with another AI, it's going to use cryptocurrencies to settle the trade. That's programmable money for programmable entities.
That sounds a bit spooky. I mean, I'm already sweating here, so you know.
Sorry, I get that a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're making it hard here. There are news about the ECB coming out with CBDC, as they're called, or a central bank digital currency. Do you think this is a dystopian or a utopian thing, or how do you see it? Like a few years back when we were talking about China in the Western media, it was always that China has this currency and they can look at what their subordinates do, as you would say. How do you see it from a European or like a Western standpoint in general?
Well, if European governments or intelligence agencies want to monitor Europeans, they can very effectively do that already, because very small part of our transactions are done with cash. We use obviously our mobile phones, we use online transactions, we use our online bank accounts, and all of that is already being can be tracked. So in that sense, I don't see it as a huge change. I think stable coins issued by governments is probably a good idea to replace some of these old technologies that we've been using for decades. But having said that, I do hope cash survives at some level. I think a future where we wouldn't be able to use cash at all is not the right future. But obviously, it's going to be a very small part of our trade.
Yeah, but I think, just thinking of it, it does feel weird hearing your grandma saying, "Let me send you some like Bitcoin." I like the fact that if she gives me a €20 bill, I'm like, oh, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
In that sense, I hope cash stays. In its early days, the internet was seen as a democratic force and as a source for peace and stability in general in the world. Do you think that's still somewhere that we're aiming to go? Are we there, or have we fallen off that track?
I think we've fallen off the track, unfortunately. We used to believe that the internet is some kind of utopia, like one world, no borders, and everybody can interact and transact with everyone else on the planet, and we will understand each other much better, and time of wars is behind us. Well, we got no utopia. The world didn't really change, and in many ways, the borders are very much there still today, maybe even stronger than what they used to be. The last 10 years has been surprising in developments. Not just did we get a global pandemic, but we got surprising election results in United States. We got the Brexit, and we have now a war raging, dead center in Europe, which is awful. Very surprising developments. We didn't realize 10 years ago how good we had it.
That is true. 10 years ago, we were just thinking that something good is coming, and then, once you have too much good, then something bad may happen. What are your thoughts on, do you think on quantum computing, a topic that I couldn't even dream about understanding, to be honest, in its essence, do you think that quantum computing can take over or hack Bitcoin or de-encrypt it?
We have to take that very seriously, and we have to change the core algorithms. There's also already a couple of proposals how to do the changes needed to make sure that Bitcoin will be quantum resistant. It's not black magic to create algorithms that can create strong encryption and strong authentication, which are resistant to quantum computers. We already have those. If you send an iMessage with an iPhone, that's already using today quantum-resistant algorithm to encrypt those messages. If you use Signal, that's quantum-resistant. The latest version of SSH terminal protocol is quantum-resistant. So we have to take this seriously, and it's not just Bitcoin. We have to update everything. And when I say everything, I pretty much mean everything, because we don't just have to update all the computers, every browser and every phone. We have to update every car. We have to update every TV. These encryption algorithms, which currently are quantum weak, are embedded everywhere. But obviously a system like Bitcoin, where there's so much wealth embedded into it, would be prime targets for anybody that would have access to a real working quantum computer. Now, when will that happen for real is the $1 million, actually $1 trillion question. And it's as hard to answer as it would have been to answer the question, when do we see AI for real 10 years ago? It's getting closer and closer, but we don't know when it happened until it did. It could happen in upcoming years. It could happen within a year, 5, 10, who knows? But it doesn't make it easier for us if we just delay. We should be changing the protocols in Bitcoin and in everywhere else already, because this can be done. It's totally doable to change the system so that quantum computers won't be able to crack them. And then when quantum computers do become real, we are right now sitting 5 kilometers from one of the largest quantum computer factories in the world. And when they have enough qubits and then they are able to do the kind of things that would be needed, it's highly likely that the persons controlling the computers would be, very large technology companies or governments. So what I'm saying is that quantum computers, the first ones to have access to them won't be criminals. I mean, we don't need to worry about criminals having a quantum computer to steal Satoshi's coins. That's not going to happen. But nevertheless, we should be fixing this problem before it becomes a real problem.
A thought that I always ponder as I think of like quantum computers and Bitcoin is that do you see that if I would have like the keys to the world, which if you like really have a crazy quantum computer, you can like access anything. That's my view on it. Why would you want to destroy Bitcoin if that is an anonymous and decentralized like monetary network? If I would be in the seat of the criminal who would do this hacking, I'd be focusing on like a company and then moving it over. But is that like a
Well, when quantum computers become powerful enough, we have to assume that they will become accessible fairly quickly to all kinds of people. Someone's going to use them to attack a system that has money in it. So it's going to happen. They might not be targeting huge stashes immediately because it would be so obvious. Again, if somebody would hack Satoshi's coins and just drain them all, that probably would have really changed the way we look at Bitcoin. They would probably start stealing some smaller stashes slowly and hoping that nobody realizes that somebody has a working quantum computer. With that sense, maybe it's already happening. We don't know it. Maybe some government intelligence agency has a working quantum computer somewhere in a basement to crack communications, and then during the wee hours, an analyst is using the same computer to crack something else, and then using that to slowly siphon cryptocurrencies. I don't think that's happening, but maybe that's the way it would start to happen if it would start to happen.
All right. That gave me a bit more of a start to look at when I'm thinking of this. This is
there's a lot of people looking at the blockchain very closely, so it wouldn't go undetected for very long.
That's my number one thought on. Yeah, but that's a good take on it. You recently shifted from antivirus to anti-drone. How do you see the overlapping in this, and how is your perspective or thoughts around all these things gone as you've gone from like digital to more like real world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. In fact, the change is still underway. I'm actually still working at WithSecure right now. I'm transiting from WithSecure to my new employer, SensorFusion, on the week of the BTCHEL conference. Oh. So my first day will actually be on Wednesday that week, when Friday is when the conference starts. So I'll be able to tell how it feels for real on stage when BTCHEL happens. But the reason why I'm making this shift is that I've always thought that there's a lot of meaning in the work I've done for cybersecurity. I've always felt it's important. I've always been motivated by this work. I've always thought it's important. But right now, in this situation, where we have a war, dead center of Europe, where the war itself has drastically changed because of these autonomous systems, not just flying drones, but also marine drones and ground drones. So in this situation, I decided that it's even more meaningful, even more important to work in that space. And that kicked me into making this shift. And it's a big shift for me. I've been working in cybersecurity for 34 years, but I've made up my mind, and that's the shift I'm doing right now, from antivirus to antidrone.
That sounds like a very honorable thing to do nonetheless.
Let's see how it works out. Wish me luck, I need it.
Yeah, I'll wish you a lot of luck. It sounds like a big project. Final question. What would be your advice in a nutshell for a person who's novice with cybersecurity, like the person you're sitting next to right now? What should they do to improve their cybersecurity going further in the digital era?
the most important thing is not to get scammed. And the way you can help yourself not to get scammed online is simply to remember that if something seems too good to be true, online it's almost never true. And these scammers, they know how to push our buttons. They know how to create sense of urgency. You must do something right now. When something really weird, unusual is happening, you get a weird phone call. Police is calling, something's up, you have to do something. Bank is calling. Regardless of how much urgency the caller has, you should remain calm. You should take a pause. You take a moment. Just put the call on hold. And then just, explain what's happening to your friend. Or, call another friend or explain to somebody next to you that, hey, I have a weird call from the bank. Somebody's hacking my bank account and they want to move all of my money to a safety account. And you almost realize immediately yourself that this is bullshit. This isn't real. It's a scam. So take a pause, explain what's happening to someone else, consider the situation, and the end result almost always is that you won't be scammed. Trust your instincts and remember, if it's too good online, it's not true.
All right. I had actually one more question now bonus question after we were talking about scams. Is Bitcoin a scam?
Bitcoin is not a scam. This is not a Ponzi. This is a major technological innovation. And like any technological revolution, yes, it can be used for bad, but it can also be used for good. And we have this balancing effect that we have to deploy. So it is not a scam.
Thank you, Mikko. This was a pleasure.